Welcome to the Athens Women's Football Series, which is live on Facebook and YouTube. My name is Shon Osimbo. The conversation about women's football continues here today, this Wednesday, as we count down to the main summit, that is the Athens Women's Football Summit, and that will be happening in Athens, Greece next month. I think it's less than 38 days to this event, so it will be very exciting. And that event will be happening on the 22nd and 23rd of September. So the conversation about women's football continues here. And listen, there's some good news when it comes to the main event, which will be happening in September, as you can see on your screen. If you scan this code today, we have a special offer for $100 off for the two-day event, which is on the 22nd and the 23rd of September. So please scan that code for a special discount from us here at Athens Women's Football Summit. And yes, let's get the conversation going. Let's continue talking about women's football across the world. And I can't wait for the summit. I've been thinking about it, reading about, doing everything, researching. It's such an exciting moment where, you meet the stakeholders, you meet the, former players, you meet the officials who have been part of making sure the women's game is a success across the world. And here at the Athens Women's Football Series, the conversation continues. The conversation is ongoing. And today we have a special guest. We'll be discussing a very important topic to all women across the world. And the topic for today is the importance of menstrual education in women's football. And I'm humbled to invite our guest today, that is Josephine Kwan. She's the CEO, also the founder of Flow to Freedom Apparel. We'll be talking to her, and let us just get to hear and understand this important initiative from her and all those who are involved. Welcome to the show, Josephine. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for that introduction, Sean. And it's a pleasure to be a part of the summit. And like you, I cannot wait to be in person again and to meet everyone in person. And the vibe is just absolutely different when you get that in-person connection. So thank you.
But you're welcome. And when we continue about this conversation about the women's game, and before we come to this amazing initiative that you put your head and strength and everything behind it, let's first just talk about what you think of women's football at the moment, because it's taking center stage. Everyone is talking about it. Everyone is cheering the ladies on. What are your thoughts on how far the game has come?
Well, first of all, I think we've always been here. I think all of a sudden now we're starting to get heard. And by no means does that mean it like we just need to push forward, because like I said, we've always been here, and that exposure needs to get magnified. And I think it's events like this that gives the opportunity for more light to be shed on the game and the importance of women and girls being involved in the sport and in the game. I know with the women's Euros, like we broke all kinds of records, almost 90,000 in attendance, almost doubling from the previous record. But that just goes to show that there has to be more visibility, because how do we know the sport exists and the importance of having these opportunities for little girls and women if there's no exposure? So I think we've always been here. We're just making more noise now, and we need to continue getting loud about that so that we do get the exposure.
Yeah. And there are people like you, and that's why today here at the Athens Women's Football Series, we are here to also celebrate you, Josephine. And people like you have been behind the scenes making sure women are comfortable. As a woman, when I was just going through your story, it was really humbling for the way you chose to remember and make women comfortable while pursuing their passion, which is football and also in sports. Talk to us about your enterprise as the founder and also the CEO of the Flow to Freedom Apparel. Where did this idea come from?
Well, I've always had a passion for sports ever since I was a little girl. I think the type of freedom that sports brings. Also love the competition side, not just with others, but for myself, of always evolving and getting better. And throughout school, I always played sport, but one of the things that unfortunately happened at a young age, when I was 15 years old, I was actually playing in a big provincial volleyball tournament. And at the time, I had suffered a period leak on the court. And I ran to my male volleyball coach at the time and told him that I needed to go to the bathroom. Instead of saying yes, he got up and shamed me in front of everyone and told me to get back on the court until I was done. And from that moment on, I actually never played volleyball again. Fast forward, again, still my passion is in sport. I finished a degree in kinesiology, worked in strength and conditioning side with athletes. But again, at that time, there was very few opportunities for women to get to that next level, especially in Canada. So then that's when I moved on and was in commercial real estate for 13 years, built out a pretty good career. But at one point, I just got to the point where I started thinking about legacy, thinking about, what was I really doing? How was I contributing to my community, to society? What did I want to leave behind when I thought about, my future? So that's when, again, going back to sports, love going to the gym, but going back to the issue of heavy periods, I could never finish a class, a spin class, or at the gym without the worry of a period leak. So that's when I actually started looking at, okay, I can't be the only one. What are my options? And I did a bunch of research, came across companies that did period underwear, which was great. But again, being a little vain, at the gym wearing my cute, Lululemons or Nikes, I was like, okay, well, now I've got these underwear lines and I'm concealing one thing for another. And when I couldn't find what I was looking for, that's when I thought, okay, well, what if I could create something that I could create for myself initially to solve a problem, but I could feel good about myself. I had that peace of mind, and still allow me to work out and continue without that stress of leaks. So that's how Flow to Freedom ended up becoming a business. It was me trying to solve a problem that I had for myself, and then the thought after multiple rounds of prototyping and testing, developing a product that worked, and thought, if I could share it with everyone else and not have that little girl go through what I went through, how amazing would that be? So that's how Flow to Freedom kind of came about.
Yeah, and I'm really impressed how you turned that moment into helping, other women. So talk to us as we narrow it down to women's football. How does Flow to Freedom cater for the players' needs, like the players you've interacted with, and also the officials, just in terms of talking to them and education?
So I think I'm going to go back to suffering in silence. For decades, I didn't really even know that anyone went through the same thing. When I did a little bit more research, you realize, it's 1 in 3 women that suffer from heavy periods. On the elite sports side, it's actually higher. Almost 50% suffer from heavy periods. So speaking to one of the biggest sports psychologists in the industry, we had a conversation, and I asked, what's the effects if you're out on the field and suddenly you're playing or you're training and you suddenly suffer a leak? What happens psychologically? And her response was, you instantly lose focus. There's just no way to snap you out and say, continue on the game, which was exactly what I experienced when I was playing volleyball. So I think how the clothing or the apparel helps is it gives you that peace of mind. And players know instantly, hey, you know what? If I do have a leak, I have time, because each pair actually holds at least 2 tampons worth of blood. So if you're out on the pitch and you're playing, okay, I'm going to make it through the game. I don't have to worry. It's not going to go through my kit. And at least the players can then still stay focused, because that's a big part of it too. It's the mental side. It's the mental anxiety. And then, the embarrassment of potentially going through a leak. The anxiety that comes with that is it's very stressful.
Yeah, and I know this is a topic, especially in Africa, especially where I hail from. For the longest time, when we were growing up, it was considered a taboo. It used to be whispers, between our mothers to their daughters, then our generation to our daughters. But through Flow to Freedom, we've realized that it's very important to actually talk
Yeah.
about this. So talk to us. Do you think the period topic is still a taboo, especially in the world of women's football?
It I would say for me, because now that I'm
Yeah,
in it, all
yeah,
I do is talk about periods.
yeah,
But absolutely, it is.
yeah.
It only doesn't seem so for me because I talk about it all the time, but it absolutely is. And it's a taboo in many ways. Um, a lot of menstruators around the world, because of the lack of education,
Hmm.
they don't even know about periods until they actually get their periods, which is kind of unbelievable. Because if you think about it,
Yeah,
51% of the world's population menstruates.
yeah.
Um, the age range for menstruation starts between 10 and 15, but the range for our lifetime is anywhere from 10 to 52. And on
Hmm.
average, we get about 450 cycles per person
Hmm.
in their lifetime. So it's a topic that's not going away. And also taboo in the sense that, as you mentioned, culturally, um,
Yeah.
just the type of products that are available. Um, for many cultures, tampons and menstrual cups are not
Hmm.
an option because of cultural beliefs,
Yeah.
whether it's virginity issues or just it's the cleanliness or just pure knowledge of what's available. So that's why um, pads, or even like the type of clothing that I've now produced, makes a
Hmm.
difference because it gives another option. Because some of those like products like tampons and cups are just not options culturally.
Yeah.
I think it's important, first of all, to destigmatize, is to be able to even say the words period and menstruation,
Hmm. Hmm.
opposed to saying things like, it's that time of the month, or it's the red dot, or flow, or calling it all these
Hmm.
other things. You need to name it. Only when
Hmm.
you name it, you can destigmatize it.
And I believe in naming it, so that we can remove that shame. I think this is a topic which is very close to my heart, as I told you, because of also where I come from. And let's just talk about comfortability also, and you can take us through that when it comes to your apparel line. Um, we've had even cases where here in Africa, let alone even Africa, here in Nairobi where I am, we had, people, ladies rising up and telling this other companies, we need, as much as you are providing pads, tampons, and all that, we need it to be, safe. We need it to be comfortable. So I can't imagine being a female player, and I'm on my period and I'm on the pitch, because we women, we understand how something small as being uncomfortable can actually make you feel on the pitch. It can literally throw you off. It can throw you off your game. So talk to us about how Flow to Freedom apparel has made sure, everyone in the sports world who's involved, the women, they're comfortable in terms of, how they're feeling, everything on your period, everything is affected, including your skin. So the steps you have taken as a company to make sure they are comfortable when they have that on.
Yeah, so I think there was a lot of thought when I originally start developing the product. My mindset was, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right.
Yeah.
Um, with all the claims with fast fashion, and we know what it's doing to our environment. Like, one of the big things for me was I wanted to do it right and with the best intentions possible. So again, some women just have sensitivities to plastic pads and different products. So using sustainable materials was a big thing for me. The exterior of the pants, shorts or leggings are made from recycled plastic bottles. The layer that's against your skin is made from organic cotton and other sustainable materials, just keeping in mind that there are sensitive and sensitive areas, right? So I think that's really important. And like you said, just making sure that menstruators are comfortable with the product and also look and feel. The way that I designed it was so that, everything gets held in with the best materials. It accentuates your figures, because we know sometimes we don't feel the best during that time of the month. And for me, that was important too. It was just its functionality and the design. But one of the other things that I realized while I was developing Flow to Freedom, it was great to produce a tangible product. But what I really feel or felt was missing as I launched and started talking to more people who would listen is what was a big part that was missing is the menstrual education side. So it's great to have a product, but if you don't have the education to complement that, then it doesn't really matter, right? If you don't have the education to first talk about what are periods, why do we have them, like how do we prepare the younger generation so that they don't have the shame attached, or can be prepared, what happens if it does come suddenly, because the first 6 years when you get your period, it's not consistent. So it can show up whenever it shows up. So how do we best prepare that? And then also having conversations with, whether it be parents, coaches, teachers. And I've had pushback. The crazy thing is I've had pushback from female teachers and coaches saying that, what, we got on with it, so should all but if we got on with it, we knew what it was like. So it is our responsibility to educate the next generation, and also coaches, whether it be female or male. It is our responsibility, and that's a big part of my mission. It's not only to provide a product, it's the education side of it. So it's why, I've developed an online course, or also working with different coaches for different sports and putting up workshops, because again, until we can speak about it and educate, we can't destigmatize the topic.
And talking about that conversation, as you said, how other people have not still embraced it. That means Flow to Freedom, as you've said, has faced some of the challenges, has faced some challenges as you continue to grow and educate people. How have you managed to overcome these challenges?
So it's finding relatability. When you're talking to other menstruators, you're trying to find the relatability, because everybody knows, if they haven't, they've known somebody that has had an accident or suffered some sort of leak before, or how hard it is to get access to products. On the other side, what I found, big allies, girl dads. When I tell the story of what I went through from playing volleyball and coming home and never, the dads would say to me, I cannot imagine if my little girl came home from school and told me that they never wanted to play a sport again because they were shamed or because they had an accident. I would just be completely heartbroken. So they're willing to do anything and everything. And then on the sports side, when it comes to coaches, it's teaching that periods and understanding the menstrual cycle is just another training variable, just like food, just like sleep, and any other training. It's another training variable. If you understand how the menstrual cycle works, you can actually leverage it, and it can be a superpower for the girls or for the athletes. Because that's exactly what happened during the 2019 World Cup, when Good Morning America interviewed Dawn Scott and asked her why the U.S. performed at such a high level compared to everyone else. One of the things that they started doing was monitoring menstrual cycles and adapting, again, nutrition and sleep and training according to where each individual player, as well as the team, where they were in their menstrual cycle. So I think now we're starting to see the doors open a little bit, but we need to make sure that we don't just slowly open them. We need to kick them open and bring everybody in all at the same time, so that we can ensure that this is not a taboo topic anymore.
Yeah. And as we keep the conversation going, let's now narrow it down to the people who handle the players, the coaches, as you said, the staff behind the scenes. What is your advice to these coaches, and how best can they support the players, especially when, they are on their period?
So, first of all, is to have the conversation. I think I've spoken, so I've worked with the head coach for the Girls Academy for West Ham United. One of the things, they brought me in to just do a workshop with their coaches on how do we broach the topic. And I think one of the most important things is, again, to say the words, to have the conversation, to not be really awkward about having the conversation, because and I know, if I'm awkward to you and I'm like, oh, I'm really embarrassed to talk about it, you will sense that, and then in turn you will be awkward. But again, if you talk about it as if it was any other thing, any other training variable, then it doesn't become a thing. And I think that part is really really important. And again, making sure that you let your players know. For example, from what I heard from this head coach, is now they have a resource or an area where they do store free period products, and then at the beginning of the season they let the players know that, hey, you know what, in case anyone needs products, it's available here, so that then your athletes won't be afraid to come and talk to you, or again, ask you, do you have, or whisper, oh, do you have product, or I have a leak, I can't come to training, or whatnot. So that's a really big part.
Yeah. And speaking of, at least, some of those steps they have adapted to make sure the players are comfortable, I think that even on a mental part really plays a huge, everything when it comes to the player being good on the pitch. Now, relating to your flow to Freedom Products, what other positive outcome, apart from now the conversation is happening, other clubs and teams have taken a step, as you've said, to make sure the players are comfortable. Has it created, not just for football, but also people participating in sports in general?
Yes. So the unfortunate stat is 1 in 3 girls currently participating in sport will drop out by late adolescence. And that's more than double of that of boys. And that's just an unacceptable number. A big part, again, is, I think, the lack of education. Even growing up culturally, I've been told from my mom and my grandmother, when you have your period, you shouldn't be doing anything. You should stay at home. Don't work out. Don't do anything that will cause you to bleed. Well, that's not the case. You bleed what you bleed. And the positivity, like the benefits of sports that actually has on your menstrual cycle is huge. So again, that, I think that's because of the lack of education, but like playing or movement helps like with endorphins, so your moods are better. Again, monitoring, and this is one of the other things that I forgot to mention when from your earlier question. One of the things that teams and coaches can start doing is really monitoring and tracking your periods, because then majority of the premenstrual symptoms that we all experience are treatable. Not majority of them are all treatable through whether it be physical activity or nutrition or supplements. And I think, again, there needs to be more education on that part, so that we know, just because I had cramps for 2 decades, not realizing that now I can actually fuel myself properly with nutrition and supplements prior, and now I actually don't have and don't experience cramps anymore. But a lot of those symptoms are treatable. We just need to put the education out there.
And finally, what is your long-term vision when it comes to Flow to Freedom? What are you hoping to achieve in the next 5 years, 10 years, as continue this journey with your enterprise?
My dream is, can you imagine if all girls, menstruators, had a pair of Flow to Freedom shorts just as PE strip, or it's just a part of your kit? Then no one would ever have to worry. If you had your period and you experienced a leak, no one would know, and who cares? Because everybody's experiencing the same thing, and you feel well protected. I think that would be my dream. That would be my goal. I actually do have donors currently looking at potentially just purchasing product and donating product to those in need. I think if there are, for people that are thinking about legacy projects and that really care about period poverty, women and girls in sport, there's a lot of options to gather as a community and really help and eliminate some of these issues. And another thing, get rid of white shorts or white kits. Come on.
Yeah, so true. That one I totally support. I totally support and understand where you're coming from, because also one thing that I think people don't realize is that as much as you have a date every month that you're expecting your period, your hormones can just act up, and it comes maybe a week early or a week later. So there's so many things and so many factors that come together when we women are actually on a period.
Speaking to that, I actually interviewed. So there is a high level elite athlete
Yeah.
that's also a heavy bleeder, because exactly what you're saying, they would wear a tampon 2 days prior. Just imagine not having your period, but having to wear a tampon for 2 days because you think it's coming, just so it doesn't show up during a tournament, during a game. It's not right, and it's not healthy. That's not what we should be doing. So I think, again, it's really important. And I think a big part is we need people that are also willing to step up and talk about their experience, so that
Yeah.
it doesn't remain this hush hush topic that we think that we're going through on our own.
Yeah.
Because
And
one in
and
three is not on your own.
Yeah, true. And from this, me too, that's one thing I've learned. It's not supposed to be a hush hush topic, especially, I will insist this, especially in Africa, because in Africa, it's literally still a hush hush topic. So how can people from across the world be part of Flow to Freedom? How can they support you? How can they support the initiative? And even others who have, as you said, some donors might be there and they would want to, donate to some parts of the world where people cannot even afford this apparel. How can people go about it?
Feel free to reach out through the website, through
Mm-hmm.
Instagram, through LinkedIn. More conversations like this.
Yeah.
I really try to put myself out there to, do workshops, speak at different conferences and whatnot, any way to get the word out there. But I invite anyone who's interested in helping, reach out. And we have this community where there's a lot of people wanting to do and help. We just need to find our ways to each other so that we're always more powerful as a community than one person trying to, push the rock up the hill.
Thank you so much for that lovely message, Josephine Kwan. It's a very, very important message in the world of sport. And now we're narrowing it down to the women's game. So thank you so much. Because also football is intense. You have to admit it's very intense. Just running for 45 minutes, you take a very short break. That short break is not just literally a break, but coaches talking to you, giving you, tips and directions of how to approach the second half. And then you go out for 45 minutes. I can't even imagine as a woman that whole, intensity that just goes into the women's game. Just
the last thing you need to do is to be worrying about your period.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. Right. Thank you so much for this
Shon.
wonderful, message to just the world, and it's a very important message. And I also think it's one of those topics that has been, as you said, pushed to the side, yet it is so important to each and every woman, whether young or old. There's that stage that you still have to go through it. So we understand each other on that level. So it's amazing. And thank you once again for that, for also joining us on the Athens Women's Football Series, Josephine.
Thank you again, Shon. Have a great day.
Yeah. You too. Once again, this talk is just the conversations that we are having to make sure the women's game is fully supported. The women's game is receiving all the support and love from all corners of the world. And this conversation continues every Wednesday as we count down to the Athens Women's Football Summit that will be happening in Athens, Greece. And this is the most exciting part. There's $100 off for the 2-day tickets. There you go on your screens. Just scan for your special ticket offer. $100 off. So we will continue pushing this. Any questions you have for us, there are people behind the scenes who are working so hard to make sure the summit is a success. We have our director, Josephine, knows him, and that is Ed Bowers. He's part of the organizing team. My director here on the show. We have Naomi, we have Marius, the founder and co-founder, and also we have Agis, the co-founder of this Athens Women's Football Summit. So many people just putting their heads together to make sure at the end of the day, the woman wins. The woman in football wins. The woman in football is well supported. And also a very, very big thank you to Josephine, who's also working behind the scenes to make sure women are comfortable. So we celebrate you and we appreciate you, Josephine Kwan.
Thank you.
Thank
See you in Athens.
Yes, I can't wait. See you too in Athens. That's all from us today. This conversation continues next Wednesday from 9 p.m. East African time. Let's keep this going. It doesn't just end here. All the questions you have for us, make sure you drop it on our social media channels. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Shon Osimbo.